Today, we're going to be talking about some of the latest news, some of the stuff that's caught most of the headlines and definitely caught Gary's eye, and maybe uh, offer some perspectives on where we think the world is going. So, Gary, how are you?
Great to be with you again.
All right. So, Gary, I got a few things here. I know that's come out of the news in the last few weeks, and I thought we'll, get some reactions from you and maybe discuss where this might what the implications are. And I think the first thing that showed up here, and I saw this recently on a headline, is Kroger announcing its Q2 results. And again, looks like an astounding quarter with some amazing numbers.
I think Kroger's results are continuing the string of supermarket retailers, grocery retailers, reporting some strong increases in sales and other performance, right? I think if I'm recalling right, Kroger reported same-store sales increases of 15%, which is just unbelievable, right? When you think historically in this industry, and a growth of 127% in their online sales. I mean, it's just
Wow.
unbelievable what's happening.
That is amazing. And you think, Gary, this is not something that's happening because of the whole COVID situation, or do you think it's their continuing efforts of their whole personalized marketing approach?
So I think in Kroger's case, it's probably both. And, a lot of the sales increases we're seeing grocery retailers reporting certainly have come from the whole COVID crisis, right? More people eating at home, not going out as much and so on. And, most retailers that I'm talking with and that I'm reading about are planning that they're going to be able to keep a good portion of those sales, even as things go back to some kind of normal, restaurants start opening up more and people start going out again. The retailers seem to be planning on a relatively permanent shift of those dollars back to the store. So I think that's going to be interesting. See how that
Yeah,
plays
I'm
out.
thinking maybe people have become better cooks now.
Well, I
They've
think
got
there's something to that.
right. I think they've got an opportunity to try more dishes at home that they've ever had before. They're certainly baking more. I know that for sure, from some of the data that we see. And do you expect these numbers, these strong numbers, to continue in terms
So,
of?
so I think
Seems
we'll
like
see.
they're pretty tough to sustain on a
Yeah,
quarter-over-quarter
I think we're going to
basis.
see the moderator plateau. We're certainly seeing that with online sales already, that many retailers are reporting they've sort of stabilized, if not even dipped a little bit. I don't think relative to online that's going to be permanent. I think we'll see online go back into a growth mode, although maybe more slowly than, during the crisis. But let's go back to a comment you just made about Kroger. Is that sales increase driven by the COVID crisis, or is it driven by personalization and other things they're doing in the digital world? And something I've written about a couple times in the past is I think Kroger has done an incredible job of really creating sort of this upward cycle of value creation, right? If you look back over the last 15 years as Kroger has leveraged customer data, they have used that across the enterprise, but certainly to personalize promotions and offers to customers. By doing that, getting more customers to do more shopping with them, as sales go up, gross margins strengthen, and Kroger's been very disciplined about investing some of those increased margins back into more strategic lower pricing to attract more people. I think we're going to see Kroger really take advantage of this situation as their sales have gone up. They've got more people shopping now, both online and in the store. They're really going to kick that whole cycle into high gear.
Wow. I think we've also noticed in general that obviously grocery scales have gone up across the board. It'd be interesting to see whether how many of these retailers have really learned to adapt and retain some of those sales, and have they changed their marketing practices to adapt to this newfound abundance of shoppers
Yeah.
dollars, right?
So I think it's a really good question. And sadly, I'm afraid a good number of retailers are sort of sitting there, I don't want to say fat, dumb, and happy today. Oh boy, sales are up 5%, 10%, 15%. Life is good. Not really understanding under the surface what's going on with where those dollars coming from relative to customers. And to your point, are they really looking ahead to, can we retain that business? Can we intelligently grow it and expand it?
I'd love to put a bookmark here, if we could in time for the show, and say, hey, in a year from now, we're going to come back and see exactly where some of these results stand with some of these retailers. Hopefully, we'll be past this crisis by then, and we'll see which of these retailers have actually managed to hang on to these sales and managed to grow their sales quarter over quarter. That'd be really interesting to see when
Yeah,
things come back to normal.
it really would. So that's a good idea. We should put a note on our calendars to do that, because I do agree. I think we're at an inflection point here in how, in a number of areas that have all come together and been accelerated by the COVID crisis here. The importance of digital engagement. Some retailers, a growing number of retailers get that now. They realize the importance of it. They're pushing hard to do that. Others don't. Some retailers are now understanding the importance of having customer level data and understanding where these sales are coming from, where they're not coming from, and so on, using that intelligence and how to go to market. But I think that's a good call out. I do think we're at an inflection point here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that leads me to the second topic here, which, this is no surprise, but we've been hearing for the longest time that Amazon has been planning to open up a regular supermarket under a different banner, not Whole Foods. And I believe this is in Los Angeles that they've opened up one, Gary,
Yes,
to my
yes.
understanding. And they've got these smart carts that they have that scans what's in your cart.
Yeah.
And I think we all saw this coming for a while. We knew this was eventually going to happen. But now that it's here, do you expect that this is going to accelerate? They're going to be opening up stores all over the place.
Yeah. My understanding is that, and as you just said, this has been known for some time. Speculation a year ago was that store was going to open up around the beginning of the year to the public. What happened was the whole COVID crisis hit. Amazon pivoted in real time and made that a dark store and used that to fulfill online orders for that surrounding area. But now that they've gotten everything under control, they've opened that store up now to retail. And I think they're calling it Amazon Fresh. And to your point, using Amazon smart carts now to speed checkout, provide contactless shopping, and so on. And my understanding is Amazon has already secured a lot of leases in different cities and areas across the country where they're going to be opening up this format.
That must be scary news for a lot of people.
Yeah, Amazon is on a roll here. I think what's fascinating to look at is Amazon doesn't always get it right the first time. They make mistakes. And
right.
Yeah, they can afford to make mistakes, but they learn from them and they, iterate, they come back again and they get it right and then they go. And, we're seeing them develop not only Whole Foods and continue to experiment with that and innovate around the Whole Foods operation, but now the Amazon Fresh format, Amazon Go stores continuing to open up, and the other format they have, Amazon Go Grocery. Right, which is a 10,000 plus square foot store. They just announced opening the second one with all the camera technology and computer vision and so on. So right. Amazon's absolutely on a roll, and they seem to be very fixated on grocery.
Now, clearly, from a technology standpoint, it's going to be very difficult for a traditional retailer to compete with Amazon. What do you think their secret sauce is here? What advantage do they have? I mean, these guys have been in business, many of these stores, for 50, 80, 100 years. And they've got to develop some edge that they can utilize to stay relevant. Or are they just seeing the writing on the wall?
Are you saying Amazon?
No, I mean the other stores.
Other retailers?
Yeah, the other retailers.
So I think other retailers, if they're going to play this game, they've got to continue to leverage new tech and capability and innovation to maintain some kind of performance parity with Amazon. And I think there's two sides to that. There's performance parity around cost of operations, right? And just overhead and what it takes to operate a store. And when you don't have cashiers, your cost of operations are significantly lower than a traditional store. But I think the other side that not too many people have thought about yet is maintaining that performance parity around marketing. And I've said for some time, I expect Amazon to really upend marketing in this industry by not being product driven, truly focusing on each individual customer and not caring what product specifically that customer buys, but getting the right products promoted to each individual customer to drive growing share of wallet and growing lifetime value.
I mean, of course, given the fact that they already have massive distribution centers around the country, allows them to set up dark stores to improve their operational expense from a distribution perspective. So, I mean, this is a tough one, right? I mean, this must be keeping a lot of people up at night and wondering how they can compete.
Oh, it is. And, you know, they just opened up a Whole Foods dark store in New York.
Right. You know, so if there's any retailers listening out there, you know, we'd like to understand what your concerns are. You know, how do you plan to compete? You know, what are you thinking about? What kind of solutions are out there that'll help you compete?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it's one of those stories, Gary. It's difficult to say it's exciting. It's because it depends on who's reading the story.
Well, it's scary. And just before we leave Amazon, I think one of the other elements there you can't lose sight of is their prowess around delivery, right? I know since we've moved, you know, Heather has now taken to ordering online from them because she can have stuff at the door within less than 2 hours.
Wow. Well, that actually is a perfect segue to the next topic, because we also heard recently that the FAA gave Amazon approval to deliver by drones. And, you know, again, this is one of those things that we've been hearing for a few years. We knew this was going to happen. And I guess eventually they've gotten approval. And, you know, I guess in a year or two, we wouldn't be surprised seeing a bunch of drones flying around delivering groceries and other products. But what do you think that even does to people's shopping habits?
Well, I think it more and more gives people the freedom or the ability to not have to go to the store, right? To avoid that hassle or that headache if they see it as such. You know, the faster, just like my example with Heather, ordering because she can get stuff within 2 hours now. You know, if using drones can make delivery that much more efficient, that much more faster, it just continues to reduce the barrier to shopping online.
Right. I mean, and I know that Walmart is probably close on their heels. They're probably also applying for permission to deliver by drones.
Yes. Yeah. And many of the other big retailers are also in partnerships and looking at how they can leverage that technology. I think to your point, now that Amazon has gotten FAA approval, I think we're going to see this just explode, this whole space.
Yeah, I'm just thinking my skies are going to be changing pretty soon.
Well, they are. You know, I mean, maybe it's not the best technology for delivery efficiency in the middle of Manhattan, although these days Manhattan's pretty quiet, maybe it works.
That's right.
But, you know, you move out to the suburbs, like out where you live or, you know, where I am outside Denver, it could be very appropriate. There's plenty of space for that thing to come land, you know, drop down in the front yard or the backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes total sense. I mean, you know, you could just have a truck pull up that carries groceries for, you know, a 1 mile radius. You know, a bunch of drones come out, pick up the bags, and just drop it off at the driveway.
Off they go.
Yeah, you know, I don't see why it can't happen. So folks, I mean, brace yourself, because I think the next couple of years is going to be pretty exciting. You know, we're going to be entering the future in a big way here. So that takes me into the next topic, which I think is also incredibly interesting. I know we've been, you know, TikTok's been in the news here for the last, you know, month and a half, you know, about privacy and data collection. And, you know, I think eventually we heard recently that Oracle is going to be stepping in and take over some of the operations, although it's very unclear whether it's ownership or operations or technology.
Yeah.
However, I know that I think in between it was Microsoft and Walmart. And so I was just very curious as to why Walmart would possibly want to have any piece of this. And I think the more we thought about it, and I think you mentioned this in one of our conversations, is everybody's after digital. Yes. And that's where the future shoppers are. And that's probably why they're interested. So what do you think?
I think the whole TikTok story, up until that Walmart announcement was primarily of interest to marketers, right? Because, how can I leverage that platform, advertise, and so on. But when it was announced that Walmart was in the mix, partnering with Microsoft to try to buy it, that should have caused a lot of CEOs and a lot of, executives across the retail industry to sit up and take notice. Um, as I write about my upcoming Retail 4.0 paper, I think that the industry is really beginning to undergo a real digital metamorphosis. And part of that, it's not just about digital engagement with customers. It's not just about growing digital ad networks based off of that, but it's really stepping back and understanding that digital everything is the future to value creation going forward. And, I think it's fascinating to watch a Walmart actually make a play for TikTok, even though apparently they're unsuccessful with it. But taking that view, right, to make a massive investment into something to grow that digital network and those connections across their customer base out into that digital world. I think I give credit to Walmart for being really forward looking. And I think that should be a real big wake up call to retail industry executives.
Yeah, I mean, I think, wow, it would have been something if Walmart was actually being run by, I mean, TikTok was being run by Walmart.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that was fascinating, I thought. Uh, all right, and every few years there's going to be a new digital platform that comes out. It was TikTok a couple of years ago, and we know that almost it seems like every 4 or 5 years this one big social media platform that
yep,
comes up and just explodes.
yep,
And clearly, as more of them emerge, with augmented reality, who knows what other kind of networks are going to emerge? And I'm sure retailers are going to make a play for owning some of these platforms at some point in time.
yeah, yep.
Yeah. Uh, so we're kind of winding down here, but I another interesting story that I really saw. I know Instacart's made a huge impact in the last few years in e-commerce in general, and I think you have to say that uh, they have really pushed the boundaries in terms of efficiency, usability, and really popularizing the whole e-commerce, grocery e-commerce side. But I saw something in the news that the other day that Uber Eats and DoorDash are going to get into the grocery delivery game.
Yep.
And it seems like things are going to heat up on the competition side from who you can go to now for delivery. So essentially a retailer will have the option of being able to fulfill and deliver using these services, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a really smart play on their part, right? I think what's happened, Shaker, is again, the COVID crisis has dramatically accelerated the growth of grocery online, right? And it has carried many retailers across that sort of inflection point where it was, yeah, okay, we're in it, it's interesting, but it's just not real important yet, to all of a sudden, oh, this is a serious part of my business now, right? I'm doing 5% or 10% of my total business in online. And that is causing retailers to step back and understand, I need to have control of this. It's my experience. I want that relationship with the customers. So they're looking at, I think in growing numbers, moving away from a reliance on Instacart to wanting that direct relationship with the customer. And that works for buy online and pick up at the store. Actual home delivery is still really challenging from an economical perspective. But that's why I think there's an opening here for Uber Eats and DoorDash and others to step into that space, partner with retailers for that last mile.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think that whole industry is going to heat up because, like you said, I think retailers want to control the shopping experience, but try to outsource the delivery and the
Yeah,
logistics, which is a big part of the cost that they're currently facing and trying to figure out how to optimize.
yeah, that's right. And with that, the retailer can retain control, retain that relationship through 90% of that online process, right? The retailer providing the online shopping experience, how they handle out of stocks, replacement products, all of that is part of their reputation, part of their brand. They're relying on Uber Eats or DoorDash or one of the others just for that final delivery stage.
Yeah. So, that's about the topics that we had to discuss today. But I wanted to tell listeners that, on a monthly basis, what we're going to do is we're going to take one episode, look back at, big retail news events coming up, and maybe discuss some of those things on this show. But Gary, we probably should have done this in the very first episode, but I really wanted to make sure we credit the people who are putting this podcast together. You and I are having fun here on the show, just chatting about topics. But really, our marketing interns at Bird's Eye did a phenomenal job putting this entire show together. And I definitely want to credit Julia Cotier, who's been with us for the summer, who actually suggested the idea of the podcast.
Yeah.
And Erica Trajkowski created our this little logo that you see here, the retail perch. A bunch of us voted for the name of the podcast, and Julie actually does the editing. Sweeney Sarah Sundara is the one who helps publish it across multiple podcast platforms. So it's just been a ton of work that's been done by these people. Gary and I, of course, get to just sit back here, have a cup of coffee, and have a nice conversation. But I really wanted to call out and thank these people because they've put in a lot of hours in making this happen. And, a big shout out to you guys. You guys have been amazing, the best group of interns that we've ever had.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great call out, recognition well due, and they've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah. So, so that about brings us to the end of this particular episode. Just to give you a heads up, if you've been listening for the past few episodes, we're trying to keep this interesting. And the next one coming up, you don't want to miss, because I think this is going to be very, very unique. We're gonna be talking about attitudinal behavior of shoppers and how it impacts shoppers lifetime value, how you can measure it. And we'll be talking to some people at Retail Feedback Group, and they've been doing this for 25 plus years. So we'll have Brian Numerville and Doug Maidenberg on the call on the next episode, so don't miss that. Gary, any parting words here?
No, as usual, enjoyed the discussion. Look forward to the next one. I think you're right. It's going to be a fascinating discussion with those guys.
Absolutely. And you guys know you can find us on Instagram at The Retail Perch, or send us an email, theretailperch@birdseye.com. And we had great fun talking to you guys. As always, if you have questions, please send it across. We'd love to get some guests. So if you want to participate in the program, write to us and we'll definitely see if we can include you. All right. With that, over and out.
Great. Thanks. Bye-bye now.